Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivraj Jagacharya Satara Satashi Shriman The Divine Grace of Bhayacharandavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Bandhacharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki BBT Bandhacharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Savior of the whole world the Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Natulilva Vishnu Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivraj Jagacharya Satara Satashi Shriman Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Granta Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada. We'll do a continued reading from Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. The additional pastimes, the chapter still a summer in Montreal. I wonder if a summer in Montreal is like a winter in New York. Prabhupada and Janardhan visited another church which displayed the relics of a saint who had been adept at healing. Walking through the exhibit of the saint's clothing, desk, bed, and personal effects, Prabhupada was unimpressed. Just see, he said. They are adoring him for healing bodies that are now dead, but they do not take interest in the healing of a soul in his eternal situation. Questions about Christ and the Bible often arose after Prabhupada's classes in the temple. Montreal, for those who don't know, is almost entirely Catholic. They're settled by the French Canadian, so almost entirely Catholic. One night, Prabhupada explained that even the most learned man studies in terms of the body only. Although a person may have many PhDs and may be talking philosophy, when he is asked, "Do you know what the soul is?" he will stop. A man raised his hand. "I have here a Holy Bible," he began. "Yes," Prabhupada acknowledged. "So the Holy Bible is also written by the Holy Spirit of mankind. Should we believe in the Bible or not?" "You can say it is written by mankind, but so far as I know, those who wrote with revelation." Prabhupada is correcting him. "The Holy Spirit?" "Yes," Prabhupada said. "Therefore you should read. Otherwise, if a man writes a book on his own, he will write on his own experience and it will be imperfect." You were speaking about men only knowing the body. What about the body of Christ? Body of Christ is not an ordinary body, Prabhupada said. That is spiritual body. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "Sambhavam yatma mayaya." So this is a very subtle point. One has to understand that when God comes, or God's Son comes, or God's representative comes, they do not accept a body like us. They have a spiritual body. "Krishna means Christ," the man replied. "He's the whole spirit. So we are also in the body of man. That is the body of God?" "No," Prabhupada replied. "The body of man is not exactly the body of God. With God, there is no difference between the body and the soul because He is all spiritual. Just like if you have a golden body and a golden soul, then there is no difference between the soul and the body. But in our case, as we are spirit soul, but the body is material. Therefore, I am different from this body. When we are liberated, we get a spiritual body like Krishna's. At the present moment, there is a difference between our body and soul. Therefore, as soon as the soul goes away from the body being matter, dust thou art, dust thou beest, mixes with matter, and the soul takes another body. The whole problem is that we have to stop repetition of migration from one material body to another material body. That is the highest perfection of life." Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 12th Chapter, Text 45. Chapter titled, Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. Danyang Yasasyam Ayusang. Danyang Yasasyam Ayusang. Punyang Swasyayanang Mahat. Punyang Swasyayanang Mahat. Saragyang Drovyam Samo Nasyang. Saragyang Drovyang Samo Yasyang. Prasayang Agamarsanam. Prasasham Agamarsanam. Please chat. Ladies. Anya yasasya mayusya. Anyone else? Danyam, bestowing wealth. Yasasyam, bestowing reputation. Ayushyam, increasing the duration of life. Punyam, sacred. Swastyayanam, creating auspiciousness. Mahat, great. Swargyam, bestowing achievement of heavenly planets. Drovyam, or Juvalok. Somanasyam, pleasing to the mind. Prasasyam, glorious. Agamarsanam, counteracting all kinds of sinful activities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Dhruvalok, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj just by hearing about him. The demigods also become pleased because this narration is so glorious and it is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Please repeat. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Dhruvalok, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj just by hearing about him. The demigods also become pleased because this narration is so glorious and it is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Purport. There are different types of men in this world, not all of them pure devotees. Some are karmis, desiring to acquire vast wealth. There are also persons who are only after reputation. Some desire to be elevated to the heavenly planets or go to Dhruvalok. And others want to please the demigods to get material profits. Herein, it is recommended by Maitreya that every one of them can hear the narration about Dhruva Maharaj and thus get their desired goal. It is recommended that the devotees, Akama, the Karmis, Sarvakama, and the Jnanis who desire to be liberated, Mokshakama, should all worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead to acquire their desired goals of life. Similarly, if anyone hears about the activities of the Lord's devotee, he can achieve the same result. There is no difference between the activities and character of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and those of His pure devotees. Shri Shivara Govinda Dev Ki. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gananjana Shalaka Chakshwam Litam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankai Degaram Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Diratarnam. Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridyant Taksto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Surat Chatam. So this, now we see that Dhruva Maharaj has achieved his goal, stepped on the head of death. This is a very interesting point about that, which was discussed the other day. But it occurred to me that this transition, stepping on the head of death, meant he'd already changed bodies. He now had his spiritual form. He was no longer in his material body. He's about to get on the airplane and he circumambulates. So this transition, Prabhupada said, happens in the blink of an eye. That point at which the devotee's consciousness is immediately transferred. There is no gap. The consciousness is already continuous. It's like when you sleep at night. It's not that your consciousness stops. It goes into a different state. You have waking state, you have sleeping state, you have deep sleeping state. So, dearest Tatra and Muyate, the self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So we saw from Dhruva Maharaj, it wasn't that he had to stop and say, oh, wait a second, I have a different body now. Or I've changed. Oh, there's my old body. No, he's immediately in a different realm. Now the material world was left behind. It was no longer part of any type of reality for him. Now he was situated in his eternal, unchanging, undying, ever-existing. So this is something that just struck me. I don't know if anyone had a similar realization at that point. But Prabhupada also makes mention, like we were just reading, in Prabhupada Lilamrita, very nice example. A golden body and a golden soul. There's no difference. But there we have the golden soul and the material body. So now we're trying to achieve that opportunity by which we leave this material body behind. And we achieve our eternal golden body. So this is part and parcel of our endeavor within this material world, where we understand that there's this very obvious duality. And we're constantly endeavoring to minimize this duality by achieving a higher state of consciousness. We no longer wish to have this, how can you say, vacillating state where one goes from one to the other, where he has to act in a certain capacity because he has some particular material obligation, right? Which is simply a distraction. So we see that the devotees, they have complete immersion. Nowadays they advertise immersive therapy or immersive education. Everything is immersion. You know, basically what do? What does immersion mean? Fully surrounded. Even language schools. They put you in a school and nobody speaks the so-called native language. You're only speaking and hearing the language which you're trying to learn. There's no communication. So if you're a native English speaker in various disciplines, they have special forces, language school, they basically put you in this situation. Nobody speaks English. You only hear from the native speakers of the language you're trying to learn, that you hear the inflection, the nuances, everything is there so that you hear only how that person in that country speaks, so that you can go and you can immediately become part of that culture. This is what spies do. We're not spies. We're here to learn that language of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, we concentrate all of our efforts in hearing about, speaking about, and seeing those things which are related to the Lord, so that we become fully immersed. So there are many parallels like this. The temple is the best opportunity for this immersion, because everything we do is connected to the deity. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. This is how we learn to eliminate the duality. Achyutananda Maharaj, in that famous Matchless Gifts video taken by these cinematographers, they asked him, so what is your realization? He said, we're functioning high on a low platform. Right? Isn't that what he said, Nathabhara? Functioning high on a low platform. Because we understand our limitations, but yet we are engaged in direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
By the way, you said they are high on the low platform, but we're low
On a high platform.
You can twist it whatever you want.
So this is the, and Prabhupada, and of course, Prabhupada mentioned here in the purport that his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada, said that all of his disciples, like Dhruva Maharaj, and his grand disciples can go back to Godhead in this one lifetime. So this should be our endeavor. And how do you make that endeavor? If you're trying to immerse yourself, you have to eliminate all the distractions. So therefore, we have the varnas, the four ashrams. And that the mandatory is that one should not remain, if he's transitioning properly, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, he must follow this process. And he must detach himself. And of course, our perfect example is our beloved spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who perfectly exemplified how one should do this. But not just him, everyone in our line. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was a perfect Naistika brahmachari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was again another perfect soul in his renunciation. We don't see that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur took sannyas. In his end of life, he was as good or better than sannyas. There's no need to change the outward dress. One has to fully accept the mood, and he has to act in that capacity. He cannot accept the outward dress and then inwardly be a sense gratifier. Right? This is the height of hypocrisy. One has to be internally and externally. This is what is called honest. One has to be honest with himself, and he has to be honest and straightforward with others. So this is not some unknown concept. All around we see that there's so much confusion based on corruption. And this corruption is just a reflection of the soul's dissatisfaction with the status quo. They want to accelerate something, either as it's described here, profit, distinction, or adoration. And so to that extent that they are determined, and just imagine this determination that one has to become a trillionaire, or a billionaire, or a millionaire. The same that Bilva Mangal Thakur, when his guru, his Varma Pradaksha guru Chintamani told him, by this endeavor, by this effort, had you applied that to trying to understand Krishna, your relationship with him, the goal of life, then you would have already achieved So that revelation has to come to everyone at some point. And why am I wasting time in any other endeavor besides Krishna consciousness? Even after coming to Krishna consciousness, one has to root out this latent desire. These seeds of sinful desire are lying there within the heart. And by our japa, we're gradually cleansing them, burning them, frying them, like Prabhupada said. Fried seeds cannot fructify, they cannot sprout. So this devotional service is being in the fire. Everything is being burned. But if one is not chanting properly, then these desires again manifest, even after one has engaged in Krishna consciousness. And again he thinks, no, let me do something. Again, whatever. Puna mushtaka bhav. Again, become a mouse. All these activities, just doesn't matter if one was the highest position in the material world, Lord Brahma. If he doesn't succeed in his efforts to go back home back to Godhead, he also comes down, just like all of us. So we have to. This is the time. This is the moment of full consciousness. This life in Krishna consciousness is our opportunity to eliminate all these desires that are remaining. This Chaita Darpana Marjanam can't be stressed enough. People don't have this. Just like if you're going to wash a pot. Sometimes you see someone who is not so enthusiastic. He'll start to scrub the pot very lightly. He has no concept of what a clean pot looks like, inside and outside. He picked up a dirty pot. He thinks, if I just get it as clean as this, I'm finished. He doesn't understand that that pot in its natural state should look brand new. And so to the extent that we apply ourselves, Atakshi Krishnamadi Naba Ved Grayam Indra Sevan Murki Hi Jivado Swayam Evas Pratida. We have to purify the senses. The cleansing of the heart is the only possible solution. There is no alternative, not by scholarship. One can by the grace of Guru. Yashadevi Parabhaktir Yatadeve Tatagaru. That's there. But Prabhupada said one should not wait around thinking he will get some honorary degree. In school, sometimes we see a person is recognized by some honorary degree. It is just a piece of paper. He did nothing to achieve that, directly related to that discipline. Maybe they give these things to so many people. So basically, for that reason, it's become diminished in value. It's like the so-called Nobel Peace Prize. They give them to anybody. It doesn't matter. You could be a big warmonger, and still you'll get the Nobel Peace Prize. So it has no value. So what has value? What has value is that which cannot be diminished in any way. It cannot be taken from you. Your money can be taken. Your life can be taken. So what cannot be taken is your realization, which allows you to dearest touch on the muyate, to make that transition at the time of death. That cannot be taken. And we've seen it. We've seen devotees who have achieved this. We've watched them as they make this transition. It's the most glorious sight. Because you know that this person has gone directly back to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead somewhere in one of the universes where he is currently appearing. This is Prabhupada's mercy. He didn't come here to give us books. Yes, these books are there. But you will not take these books also. You can only take the realization from your applied determination to realize Who am I? Sambandha abhidayam prayojan. Who am I? What is my relationship with God? And what is the goal? That is all you can take. At the time of death, we see that the devotees would, we were, just like Prabhupada was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and translating up to the point of departure. This is such, no ordinary person can do like this. Most of our devotees, God brothers and God sisters, they were chanting to the best of their ability. It's not that they were reading. They didn't say, give me a book. No. Simply the holy name. Simply the holy name. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also said, there's nothing in the 14 worlds but the holy name. That realization is what the time of death offers to you as a final sanctification. And don't think that this cannot or won't happen to you. So if you're not prepared, we see sometimes a devotee during the course of his service, he may have some interruption. He may stub his toe. And sometimes you'll see that the devotee is in that pain. Because Prabhupada gave a class in Vrindavan. He said, if one is falling down from a high place, simply if he chants the name, then there's no pain. Doesn't matter, snake bite, this, that, the other. So this is the prescription, the medicine, the solution. That when you stub your toe, you don't say, ow, or something else. Everything has to, only Krishna. Everything is Krishna. If you can't remember it at that time, how will you remember it at the time of death? You cut yourself and you say, oh, something. Everyone knows what that something is. That was your test. And you passed it or you failed it. You said, oh, Krishna. Yes, okay. That's an encouraging point. Maybe at the time of death I'll remember Krishna. Maybe. If I can keep practicing now. That anything that seems to be a botheration is simply an opportunity to remember Krishna. We read about how when Lord Chaitanya came back after he was initiated by Ishwar, he was teaching them that every word is an indication of Krishna. So he was teaching the grammar like that, and the students, they couldn't understand. So they left the school. They said, this fellow's crazy. He's telling us that every word is Krishna. But the fact is, if you study the etymology of Sanskrit, you'll see that every word has, in its root meaning, it has to indicate the personality of God. Why? Because He is the source. Hamsavasya Prabhavo, Atak Sarvam Prabhatate. The source of all spiritual material worlds. What else is He? He's also the sound and ether. So that means all sound is Krishna. And He's the ability in man, Purusharam Nushu. But who besides the devotees can understand that or even appreciate that? That everything is related to Krishna. And so there is no real excuse for forgetting Krishna at any time. But we see that this is the situation. Because we are not so fully absorbed yet. Because sometimes we're here, sometimes we're there. Bandhu atmatmanastasya. The mind is the best friend. But what does it mean, the best friend? it's said philosophically that you cannot see something which the mind has not previously seen. It's not that there's so much for so-called imagination. The mind can mix many things, just like the analogy probably gives of gold and a mountain. And then in a dream, you'll see a gold mountain. Yeah? But we have the opportunity to cleanse this mirror of the mind so that the real mind becomes prominent. And then it is your friend. Then we see within ourselves, not externally. And how pleasant it is when we get a glimpse of that. When we are through the eyes of the spiritual master, just like Shastra Chakshus. Prabhupada has given us these descriptions. So we have not seen, but he has seen. And therefore, through his eyes, we can see. So how important it is to have a pure devotee who is giving us this transcendental literature that no one else could ever possibly achieve at this point. In the future, some of you may achieve. Prabhupada said, not your children, not your children's children, but your children's children's children. So we can look forward to this. There's another type of planting a seed. Expanding this movement so that we can guarantee that there will be pure devotees. Just like we see the Gaudiya Math, 64 temples. And out of 64 temples, how many hundreds of disciples were there? But just like that verse, Manushanam Sahasreshu Kastidyati Jasirihai. So out of one. So this effort, our effort now is not in vain, even though it may appear to some to be some material endeavor. There's some bricks, some mortar, some maintenance like that. But this is so absolutely important for the future. Kali Yuga is 427,000 more years. And the golden age of Kali Yuga is 9,500 more years. So within this time frame, everything will be accomplished according to the plan of the Supreme Lord. And so we somehow or other, we have stumbled upon this opportunity, this golden opportunity to achieve a golden body to go along with our golden soul, so that we don't waste another life rotting in this material world. And this, endeavor requires the utmost cooperation. It is not something that can be done, on a whimsical or capricious or half-hearted way. One has to give everything he has. And then he will get the desired result. So we use this term surrender, but it has different meanings according to one's realization. When the pure devotee, the spiritual master, encourages us to fully surrender, he is talking about the ideal concept of full surrender. Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve. One who has implicit faith in the spiritual master and Krishna, not 10% faith or 20% faith. Implicit, by definition, means to the maximum. So we have that full understanding. There's no other understanding. That's what implicit means. There's no other understanding. Implicit faith. And then the word faith has another meaning also. That faith is not something which is material. It is developed by following the spiritual process. It is not the faith in some temporary, material, abstract concept that one changes. Prabhupada used that analogy of changing from Christian to Muslim to Jewish to something. It is not that faith. So many opportunities are there for us to develop this level of faith that cannot be developed anywhere else. You cannot, without any great endeavor, develop it outside a temple. One has to have the foundation here. Yes, at some point, maybe he becomes sannyas, becomes Babaji. He goes off to the forest, like Dhruva Maharaj. And maybe he'll get perfection. But it is not guaranteed. It is guaranteed if you stick to the instruction of the spiritual master. And we don't have such instructions from His Divine Grace that one should. Matter of fact, we have just the opposite. Never leave ISKCON. And so some are thinking that ISKCON is just some material appellation, combination of letters, some acronym. Have no understanding. Golokara Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. Just like the holy name is descended from the spiritual world, Prabhupada said ISKCON has also come. Because there's none different in concept and purpose. We have to have that Vyavasayamika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana. We have to have that Ekeha, that one pointed attention. Otherwise, it is not possible. If one is distracted easily, one's intelligence is many-branched. So this is the recipe for disaster. One is trying to think of this, think of that. In this material world, how many people they say, oh, I can multitask. But generally that means that without dedicating attention to any one task, all these other tasks are just half complete. So what is the point? Better to be fixed. Have that simple thing. What is the mercy of the spiritual master is so overwhelmingly beneficial that if one takes it, all his misgivings can be immediately destroyed. Because he gets that realization that the spiritual master is the bona fide representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's like meeting that person who can, if someone came to you and says, I can take you, just like here are the Vishnu Dutas, or here in this case, they're not Vishnu Dutas, they're actually residents of Shishumara. So they're extraordinary. But they're directly coming to take Dhruva Maharaj back home, back to Godhead. So that is the facility that the devotees have, and no one else has. Ajamil did not get that facility until after he became free from his past sinful activities. So, what to speak of past sinful activities? We have to get rid of our that tendency for mental speculation and envy. Nirvara sarvabhuteshu yasamameti pandava. Is envious. We're always thinking how I can achieve something at the expense of someone else. So this mentality, if one is developing it for so-called professional, advancement, it becomes a detrimental obstacle on his path of spiritual life. Because if he's always used to thinking, I have to achieve by this method or that method, by hook or crook, then that won't get him the grace of the spiritual master. He cannot push the other aspiring disciples to the side and try to make himself the... matter of fact, a very good example, one devotee who used to accompany Prabhupada, whenever Prabhupada was in a particular place, this devotee would be there, and he'd do something like, he'd be speaking flowery words, high praise, but from a very shallow sense, flattering words, not sincere. Sometimes he would also sprinkle flower petals where Prabhupada was walking. Prabhupada stopped and he said, why don't you do something practical? Prabhupada had no use. Matter of fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had a famous aphorism. He said, that person who flatters me, he is my enemy. He is my enemy. So one should neither give nor seek such shallow praise. To the right person, yes. One has his spiritual master. One has his senior godbrothers. Those persons are worthy of one's respect. But it should be done honestly from the heart, not superficially. Otherwise, the superficiality becomes one's, how can you say, default consciousness. So we don't want to have this default consciousness. My default consciousness should be Krishna conscious. And then the so-called, whatever you say, exception should be that momentarily I'm disturbed by something. But only until I can remember Krishna and put myself back into proper consciousness. These things do happen. But it specifically says that one has to drag the mind back. So this is our endeavor, this is our training. We're not so-called advanced devotees. There are, of course, in our society. I don't perceive myself in that category because I have many desires that I'm constantly trying to minimize. So they're there. But that is the endeavor. One doesn't ignore them and pretend that they're not there. If you pretend, it's like if you pretend that there's no enemy outside the door, and he opens the door and he shoots you, so game over. So you have to make sure that you're taking all precaution and that it is not just some fool's mentality that he doesn't perceive the dangers and the pitfalls. He will not have to experience them to the extent that he's fully engaged in Krishna's service. That's a different thing. Wherever there is Krishna, then he has no issues. He has no problems. So you have to have Krishna and Krishna service, Nama Chintamani Krishna. If you're always engaged in Krishna's service, then you're always protected. So as much as possible, engage, especially on a day like today. So much engagement. Someone is thinking of canteen, someone is thinking of feast, someone is thinking of reception, someone is thinking of book distribution. All of these things are related to Krishna. No one should be thinking, oh, I have to leave the temple and go take a walk. I have to clear my head, breathe the fresh air. This is not fresh air. This is New York City. Well, the mind makes an excuse like that. Oh no, bro, I need to get out of these four. I need to get out of Vaikuntha and walk around in Maya for a little while. So if you think like that, then what's the point? Sometimes I have to catch myself. Someone will say, Prabhu, you never leave the temple. I says, why should I leave the temple? Should only leave the temple for Krishna's service. Otherwise, simply walking into Maya's kingdom. And it's obvious. If one is honest, it's obvious. Out there is nothing but the parade of sense gratification in every variety and form. In the form of men, in the form of women, in the form of this, and so many things. Just simply a parade of sense gratification, opportunity. And each one is calling out differently to the extent that your heart is not cleaned. And it's grabbing the eyes, grabbing the nose, grabbing the tongue, saying, come. So, we have so many, every person who walks in the door today is a potential devotee. This is a fact. Every person who walks in the door is a potential devotee. Doesn't matter if he thinks he's coming for the restaurant or the canteen or this or that, the other thing. They're here for a reason. Krishna has allowed them to come to the temple. And it is our responsibility and our duty to give them what they came for, to give them what they're looking for, to give them that book. Whatever book, even a few-page pamphlet, Reservoir of Pleasure. But they must leave with some literature. Or hear something. But better to take something to meditate on when they go home. So any questions? I can read the text again. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Dhruvalok, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj just by hearing about him. And we have to circle this in the book, because that hymn should be capitalized if they're talking about Krishna. The demigods also become pleased because this narration is so glorious, and it is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. So where have we heard that before? Sarvadhamma pratyaja mame kam sharam bhaja. Tvam sarvam papabhyo. So this is everything is here. Everything about Krishna consciousness is perfect. To the extent that we accept it as such, on the order of our spiritual master, on whatever little realization we've had up to this point, because that is there. This is the whole process of clearing. This Chaitanya Dharpana Margin works. It's like if you actually wash the pot and get it clean, it's a tangible result. And if one is not harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena asati daiva, one is automatically achieving all the good qualities of the demigods. But you have to use them. Just like a gift is a gift. These good qualities are being given to you, and you're having an opportunity to take them up. But if you don't use them, then you will lose them. So Narad Rishi has a question. Look, even before he asks for questions, he has a question.
Did ask.
Oh, yes.
Prabhu, innocent Dhruva Maharaj, he was influenced by his mother to achieve something bigger than his propita, Brahma. But after he was in Madhuban, he went through the austerity for 6 months. Then the Supreme Lord came and touched the conch on his forehead. His entire material desire was completely mitigated. Then after that, the Lord is so clever, he was asking, yes, my dear Dhruva, you asked me just whatever you want. But by that time, his all material desire was finished. Then he said, my dear Lord, I was after a piece of broken glass, and now I got the gem and I don't need anything. So do you think but still the Lord gave him the planet which is above the material world, that is spiritual world. Why we have to blame just because he has some other desire that he wanted to get? But even then the Lord gave him something which is priceless.
But the Lord didn't give him something material. He gave him service. You know, it's not that of course we can look at it from different angles, that the Lord was saying, no, you wanted this, now you have to take it. For 36,000 years, but it's not, it's eternal. So this is not an imposition. The spiritual master says, I want you to go preach in Russia. But Prabhupada, I wanted to serve you personally. I wanted to be with you. Right? Sometimes we hear that, why do the Nitya Siddhas come down to the material planet? Because Krishna asked them. Krishna asked them, you please go. So Dhruva Maharaj also was given some service like that. Maybe he didn't see it as such, because he was thinking, and then we have that vision of Dhruva Maharaj seeing the super soul, but then he disappeared from his vision. And so, interestingly, when Prabhupada was leaving, he said, I am not leaving. We were all watching that he was leaving. He said, no, I'm not leaving. So I'm going into your heart. So Dhruva Maharaj had the same. He realized that Krishna was in his heart. But at the same time, Krishna was giving him the opportunity to go back and continue that continuous darshan. And that darshan is a very intricate word. But the ability to have that pure consciousness where one can see the Supreme Lord in everything, everywhere, at all times and under all circumstances. This is the definition. So he had, not that he was just going to that planet, no. Krishna was with him in his heart all the time. 5 years old, he maybe didn't realize it. 6 years old, he was thinking, oh yes, I wanted something else. So the example is there on both ways. So we see his immature appreciation of his darshan, and then from the service that he's given, we understand. Later on, he advanced, of course. He takes it a little bit too far in one sense, and therefore there's a nice story, killing all the yakshas. And then again, he has to be brought back to his original constitutional position, that he's a servant of Krishna, and he has to act like such. And this is the whole point of full circle in this regard. And he had to get rid of that final vestigial remnant of that anger or envy or dissatisfaction, whatever it was. And he did it. And that's the purport. There's always a goal, and we have to keep that in mind. In the material world, the goal is, what do they say? He who dies with the most toys wins. That's what the materialist thinks. He who dies with the most money, he wins. No, it's not the goal. The goal is not to take birth again in the material world, but they don't know that. But by our opportunity to have access to every possible scenario, because that's what the Bhagavatam, why does it say that one is self-realized if he can read the first 9 cantos? Because you're taken through every possible scenario of human life, demigod life, insect, 8,400,000 species of life. From Abrahma Bhuvanaloka Puna, every possible scenario. So that you can put it aside and say, yes, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So that is the thing. Cantos 1 through 9. And then one should be situated so that the rest of this life is just simply engaged in service, whatever the spiritual master orders. People think, oh, you're just foolish. You're just this, who is this person? Why is he sitting on a big chair, like they said in Paris? First question in the audience, why are you sitting on such a big chair? Prabhupada said, because that's the chair they gave me. One time they asked something, when Prabhupada came up in a Rolls Royce, reporter says, you're driving in a Rolls Royce. Says, this is the best they had. With a pure devotee representing the Supreme Personality of God, it should have been a gold Rolls Royce. But that's it, they don't understand. Who is the representative of God? What would they do? That student who was asking about Jesus Christ, they don't know. What would they do if Jesus Christ appeared for them? Do they have any protocol? Do they have any consciousness? What is their Christ consciousness? How would they receive a pure devotee? No one knows how to receive a pure devotee except devotees. So we're prepared for all circumstances. And we're learning every day how. What is that deity worship? What is that? If one can mold his consciousness in such a way that he develops this submissive service attitude, then that is perfection. He doesn't need anything else. He doesn't need any piece of paper telling him that he's read so many books and he's answered so many questions and he's written so many essays. No, these things are not. These things are formalities for, just self-measurement, not self-realization. If one wants some acknowledgement, okay, yes, I'm happy I can still remember a few shlokas that I learned 50 years ago. That's something. Because manda samanda matayo. I want to have a memory like Ram Roy's. That's my goal. Wait, what is the key? You have to use it or lose it. See? That's what preaching is. So stay in the fire of preaching, because you'll have the opportunity at every situation to use what Krishna has allowed you to remember. Without Krishna, you cannot remember anything. Sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm trying to remember that shloka. It will not come. If you gave me $1 million, it wouldn't come. But then you could be speaking to someone and all of a sudden, well, there's that shloka. Because Krishna allowed you to remember it at that point. It's not me. My memory is not under my control. So, do you want to get a planet like Dhruva? You can get. You can get. And everyone will circumambulate you. All the stars, all the planets, everyone will circumambulate.
Prabhu?
Keeping their right side.
Prabhu, when Rolls Royce was given to Srila Prabhupada, then Prabhupada said, if gold and diamond Rolls Royce will be given to me, still that will be insufficient.
Yes.
Because he's God's representative.
Yes. So our good fortune is His divine grace. That is our only fortune. So on that note, we should go and get ready to preach to the guests who are coming. We see by this preaching so many nice devotees have come. And hopefully they'll continue to come. And of many of them, one will surrender. You don't know who is that next person. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki, Shri Gauranitai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki.
Jai Ho. Sriman Hansarupa Prabhu ki.
Ananta Koti